Good morning everyone and welcome to episode 14. I had to think for a minute there. Not much in the way of life to tell you about. Nothing much has happened. Nothing has really gone wrong. Touch wood. So, yeah. Weather's been peculiar. Either very wet or very hot. That's about it really. Nothing much to report. I will get on with the knitting stuff, where there is quite a bit to report. Sorry. Prepare yourselves. I have a half finished object. This is all I have to offer you in the way of anything nearly finished. I've finished one of my son's scrappy socks, displayed here very elegantly on my handmade cardboard sock blocker, which is a little too large for this sock, but everything else I have is too small. I'm struggling to do the second one, and I'll tell you why. Would you like to hazard a guess at how long it took me to sew in all the ends? Now bear in mind, for every colour there were two ends, and one at the beginning and one at the end. I'll give you a minute to think about it. Have a count up and a guess. Time's up. I shall tell you. It took me 5 minutes under 2 hours to sew in all the ends, which is making me a little bit reluctant to get on with the second sock. I've done the rib and I've done the first stripe of the second sock, and there I have kind of stalled. And before you all jump in the comments to hopefully tell me there's other ways of doing it, you can, weave them in as you go. I do know that. I know 3 different ways of doing that. But because it's a sock, I wanted to sew the ends in so that they would be the least irritating as possible, because every way I know of weaving in an end, it leaves kind of a ridge where the yarns are. So I do know. And I think there's a lady, I think it's Hey Brownberry. She has a scrappy sock tutorial where she shows you how to weave the ends in and how to not get a jog. There is a jog on these socks. Let me get it off its improvised blocker. There is a bit of a jog, but I don't think it's too bad. It's down the middle of the foot and down the middle of the leg. That's the worst one there, I think. But other than that, I think it's livable with. I could wear this quite happily, and you know how fussy I am. The second sock is not going to come out exactly the same. It's going to have the same number of beige and, I suppose you could call it tan, stripes, but what's within the stripes will vary slightly. And I think I can live with that too. I mean, they're not for me, they're for my son. But yeah, I think I would be all right with that. So that's a bit reassuring. I've not made any scrappy socks for myself as yet, because I was worried about things not matching, and you know what I'm like. OCD to the nth degree. But yeah, I would wear this quite happily. So I think once I've finished these, I will make some scrappy socks for myself. But as they're for me, I may well, particularly with the leg, weave in the ends as I go. Maybe not on the foot, but with the leg I will. So that's it for anything anywhere near a finished object. You may remember, if you saw last week's episode, that I was going to have to pull my rocket tea back. Excuse me, I swore I was never going to do this, but I've got a real tickle in my throat this morning. I was going to have to pull my rocket tea back because I don't know why I thought I could live with it. Under the arm, I'd got about that much without the holes in that you're supposed to have. And then I started making the holes and I thought I could live with that, but I couldn't. And I was doing the decreases for the holes wrong anyway. So I was going to pull it back to the armholes. So I spent a couple of hours on that at the weekend, and let me show you what it looks like now. Bear with me. I don't know if you can see that. No, you can't. Okay. It's in about 8 million little balls, one of which has escaped and run for its life. I pulled it down a bit and I thought, oh, while I've got it off the needles, I'll try it on. So I tried it on and it didn't fit. The pattern tells you need about 4 inches of ease. I had a little bit more than that. Again, would you like to hazard a guess at how much more than that I had? Hands up if you guessed 22 inches of ease. Nobody? Oh, you surprised me. Yes, it was 22 inches bigger than it was, well, bigger than me, which made it 16 inches bigger than it was supposed to be, because it was meant to have about 4 to 6 inches of ease. It was actually bigger than the largest size on the pattern, and I don't know how. You're probably all yelling at me, but we know you, Mandy, you didn't do a tension square. And you would be right, I didn't do a tension square, but I did check my tension as I was going. And width-wise, I'm not worried about length, width-wise, I should have had 22 stitches to 10 centimetres or 4 inches, and I had 20. So I don't think that's enough over that size of a jumper to have made it 22 inches bigger than it was supposed to be. So I'm in a bit of a quandary now. I mean, obviously, I'm not even going to bother to go down needle size for 2 stitches. I'm just going to try and knit a little bit tighter. But now I don't know what size to make, because I really don't think being out that much on my tension is enough to have put me that much out on the garment. I mean, 22 inches. Literally, you could have fitted someone else in there with me. So I've not recast it back on. I've pulled it down completely, and I haven't cast it back on as yet because I just don't know what size to do, and I can't work it out from my tension. And yet loads of people have knitted this and not had a problem. So I'm wondering, it's highly likely it's me, but I am wondering whether the pattern, the way it's scaled up for larger sizes, it perhaps has just been done numerically and not tried out on a larger size. I don't know. I don't know, but 1/4 of a stitch over an inch I wouldn't have thought was enough. Who knows? So anyway, that's my first disaster. And I'm really disappointed because when I tried it on, I wasn't sure. When I started knitting it, I wasn't sure if I liked it because it was not colours that I normally wear. I'm going to have another sip, sorry. But I tried it on and it looked really nice. And so I was a bit gutted. So I do want to knit it, but I just... And I mean, that was around 3 weeks' work, so I don't particularly want to knit for another 3 weeks and discover it's too small now. I don't know. First world problems, eh? So yeah, disaster number 1. I started on the 1st of July 2 knit-alongs. And the first one is the Friends Are Like Flowers shawl by Kathy from Whatnot. I started it and I posted my first little day's work on it. I posted it on Instagram and tagged Kathy in so she could have a look, all proud of myself, and she went, "Oh, you're doing stocking stitch then, not garter." So I pulled that down and I started again. And I've just got to the second section of the shawl. This is it so far. So this little creamy bit on the end was the bit that I had done a stocking stitch and should be garter. So I've redone that. I think I'd got 2 green stripes in when I showed it to her. So I've pulled that down and redone it. And I'm just doing the second section. And I've hit another snag. Because this, can you see this kind of spine that runs up the shawl? That should be over here. And my husband came home from work last night just when I had discovered that and was cursing and generally having a bit of a tantrum. And he said, "Well, can't you do it the other way?" I went, "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, can't you do it on the other side?" "No, I can't. Because there aren't enough stitches on the other side." So take a good look, because this is getting pulled down again later as well. And I can't fudge it because A, it won't be right, and B, Kathy and her daughter and all the test knitters put so much effort into getting this pattern made and tested, and you know, her daughter did the, I don't know what you call it, like the editing, the tech editing. So it's a bit of an insult really if I don't pull it down and do it properly, and that's why I pulled the stocking stitch bit down and redid that, because otherwise, well, it's not going to be as her pattern is, and I just think that's rude. So I can pull that down again. 3rd time lucky, let's hope. I think the reason these things are going wrong is I'm really rushing at stuff because I feel under kind of a time pressure that I've got to get stuff done to show you in the next episode. And I want to have various things to show you so you don't get bored. And so I'm just like going at things like a bull in a china shop. And with this, the stocking stitch episode was because I just hadn't read the pattern properly. Pardon me, I'd read the first couple of letters, like the first couple of stitches, and then rushed to the end of the row and read the last couple of stitches and then filled in the middle by myself. And that's why it all went horribly wrong. And I think it's gone wrong this time because when I was about an inch into it, I accidentally pulled it off the needle and I picked up the stitches, and I think I've picked them up wrongly, because I'm looking at it now and I can see where it changes. I feel like this week I ought to be wearing a big pointy hat with a D on the front. So that's the second disaster, and hopefully the last, because the second knit along I started, Amanda from Little Lycat Yarns is having a Christmas in July. I think it's a make along rather than a knit along, but don't take my word for it. And I decided, of my many patterns that I want to knit for Christmas, I would do this one, which is Celosius by Jen Steingars, because I had the yarn for it. The other jumper I want to knit, I need to buy some yarn for, and as we know, I am trying not to buy yarn because I have far too much. So I started that. I'm doing all right, actually. I think. I don't want to say too much after the last two. I think I'm doing okay. I've got this far. And I have kind of knit this pattern before. I showed it to you once before. I was doing it in a pale green and white, and it really didn't, there wasn't enough contrast, so I stopped. But yeah, the red and white is perfect, and I don't know if you can see, the white is sparkly. I don't think you can see that. Might see better on the inside. Picking up any sparkle? No. And I'm just using yarns from my stash, as I say. So I am using some pretty cheapy stuff. Premier Value double knit, which came from a little shop in town, proper job, not even a yarn shop, they're like a little hardware store. And Robin Bonnie Babe Sparkle DK. Don't know if you can see the sparkle on this. Oh, a little bit. So a little bit sparkle. Come on, sparkle for me. No, we're going to give up on trying to get that to sparkle. The light is no good for sparkling, apparently. So this is going, as far as I know, okay. And I'm literally halfway into the pattern. What you can see there is repeated in a mirror image underneath it. And then you measure how much you've got and then knit more or don't, depending, to get the right length for the yoke, as it were. So I'm quite pleased with that. I'm looking forward to that for Christmas. It'll be quite warm because although this is a DK, it's quite a thick DK and it's 100% acrylic, so yeah, looking forward to this one. At the moment it's not yet big enough to try on and discover it's the wrong size. And I'm telling you, if this is the wrong size, that's the end of it, because I hate doing colour work. I really hate it, because you have to count all the time, and I can't watch telly. Well, I can watch telly, but I have to listen to it. So yeah, if that's not going right, that's that. It's done. I've no patience to redo that. And I also told you last week that my son had hit me with the bombshell that he'd bought a pattern for a shawl collared cardigan and the yarn to make it. And I was a bit, well, I think I said I was waiting with anticipation and apprehension at what it might be and what colour it might be, to be honest. I have mixed feelings about the pattern, and I shall tell you why. It's a nice pattern. It's interesting to knit. That's not the issue. The issue is that this is a hayfield pattern. I think it may be 5227 because I did some spying and research. He bought this on eBay from a lady who has obviously got the pattern and is photocopying it and selling the copies. And she is very carefully removing any sign of the maker and the pattern number, which I believe is a little bit naughty. However, he didn't know. He didn't know that this is not on. I'm trying to get from him who it was so I can report it to eBay, because, well, it's theft essentially, isn't it? I'm not sure if it's theft of intellectual property or something, but I know it's a big no-no. Years ago, I used to make reborn baby dolls. And a similar thing happens with them. Basically, you get a sculptor in the UK or America or wherever will sculpt a doll from clay and then send this off to a factory, and they make a mould, and then from that they make whatever number of vinyl sculptures, essentially, that artists then paint and weight and put together. And what's happening is some of the moulds are being bought by companies in China who are then doing loads of rip-off copies. So you may have a sculptor who's done a particular doll and the run of that is only going to be 300, which makes it quite rare. And then it gets nicked by them in China and they flood the market with thousands of them. And obviously they're not the same quality and they haven't got the original certificates with them. But a lot of people who want to buy them look and go, well, I don't want to pay £500 for that one when I can get this one for 150. Same thing really, isn't it? So yeah, so I feel a bit peculiar knitting from it because I know it's a dodgy copy. But he surprised me with the colour he chose. It was not what I was expecting. It's James C. Brett Aztec Aran with alpaca. It's only 10% alpaca, 90% acrylic. I've never knit with alpaca before. In the ball, the yarn feels really soft. As I'm knitting it, it's a little bit squishy. But I don't know whether that might just be me. I'm allergic to lanolin, so I don't knit with pure wool. I can manage sock wool. I've never tried any wool yarn other than sort of 75-85%, and I get on okay with that. But this, I'm finding, because of the way I hold my knitting, it eventually runs through my hand like that, and I'm finding I have to stop and just let that V between my thumb and my forefinger kind of desensitize. So I'm hoping it's going to be okay for him, because I know he's got issues with scratchy things and what have you. But I haven't done a great deal, but I have done this much. So it's going to be quite nice. It's an 8-row pattern repeat, and that's, I think, two repeats of the pattern. So it's kind of a broken must stitch. I don't know what it's called, this bit of it, because on the back it looks like rib. It's not a stitch I've come across before, but it's quite interesting to knit. So yeah, that's what he chose. There's been a little bit of a hiccup though. The pattern said to buy 2 balls of 400 grams Hayfield bonus Aran. So my maths genius went to university to study pure maths, son, bought 400 gram balls. Yeah. So I said to him, what do you want me to do? Because this is not enough. And he bought the yarn on Etsy, I think. Yes, I think it was Etsy. So I've given him the dye lot and everything, and he's gone back to the lady and said, could he have another 400 grams? So hopefully there'll be enough to finish it. Otherwise he's going to have a short sleeved collar. No. Short sleeved cardigan with no collar and possibly only one front. If there's even enough of that to do that much. So yeah, that's that. And I did tell him it wasn't going to be quick. It's going into rotation with everything else. I've got so many projects on the go now. I've got 3 jumpers, a shawl, and 4 pairs of socks, 2 blankets, and a cowl. The blankets don't, well, one of the blankets gets knitted on every day because it's a temperature blanket. The other one is my scrappy blanket. Sorry, I've got an itchy lip now. I need to take an antihistamine is what I need to do. So that only gets worked on when I've got some scraps to add to it. So the jumpers and the socks are all in rotation with the shawl. So every day I will pick up a bag of jumper or shawl and a bag of socks, and that's what I work on that day. And that's kind of working because I'm not getting a chance to get bored of anything. The only trouble is sometimes I will pick up a bag, say my Christmas in July sweater, and I don't really want to knit on that today. I want to do the thing I was doing yesterday. But if I do that, there'll be no progress on anything. So they're being rotated. I have a system. Yeah, so that's that really. Not the best of weeks one way or another, knitting wise. I've kept to my not buying any yarn promise. I'm going to try and keep to it during July as well. There is an advent calendar coming out that I have a hankering for. But still, we'll see. I'm trying to be good. So I've not bought any yarn, but I did open the advent calendar, year-long advent calendar I've got from Ange Knits. The yarn from that I've made several things from. I've made 1 pair of socks. I've got another pair underway, the green cable socks. I made my breezeway tee. That was yarn from my advent calendar. And I think I've only got 1 ball, or 1 skein rather, that I've not used in anything as yet. I normally open it on the 1st of the month, and I forgot on the 1st of July. I think I was so excited about casting on these knit-alongs that I forgot about my advent calendar. And when I remembered on the 3rd and went to open it, look what I found. I absolutely love it. It's kind of, it puts me in mind of flamingos because I don't know how well it's coming out. There's a really, really bright pink, fluorescent highlighter pink. And then there's kind of this orangey pink. And then actual orange. Every now and again you get a little bit of brown. And it makes me think of flamingos. So last month, the pale green, variegated pale green, I dubbed zombie flesh. This one I'm calling flamingo because they don't have names. Because when she does you an advent calendar, you can tell her what your favourite colours are, and then she will make one up specially for you. So they're not actually colourways, as it were. They may just be things she's experimented with, or they may be a colourway she's not yet named. So they don't have names on. So yeah, this is now Flamingo, because it reminds me of their, I mean, obviously they're pink. Apparently they're pink because of what they eat. They eat shrimps or something, and that makes them pink. I don't know if that's true. It sounds like one of those stories you get told and then trot off and repeat to people, and they think you're an idiot. So I don't know if that's true. But then the sort of orangey brown is like their legs. It's my flamingo. And I think it will probably be socks. Probably. I haven't decided yet. I suppose if I was really kind, I would put it into a giveaway, but I don't think I'm that kind. So, sorry, it's mine. It's my present for July and for being a good girl and not buying any yarn. Though the progress I've made backwards with so much knitting, I probably shouldn't have a present, really, should I? No. I should have the pointy hat with the D on and stand in the corner. That is how I feel. So I'm going to try not to rush things quite so much. Next week, there probably won't be an episode because my husband has taken a few days off work. He's actually off from tomorrow, which is Thursday, and then he's off the whole of the next week and until the following Tuesday. Oh, hang on. Sorry. It's like magic. He was ringing me and I realised now I was supposed to message him and tell him I'd started recording and I forgot. So that's me in trouble. Yeah, so we've got days out planned. I think on Wednesday, which is when I normally record and publish, we're going to Cardiff to see some friends who moved back to Cardiff February 2020. What a time to go. So obviously we haven't seen them since then. And I've been ill, they've been ill, so we want to go and see each other. Yeah, so there probably won't be. I might try and do it on a different day. I don't know. I don't really know what he's got planned. I don't know how much of it involves me. Mutterings have been made about the Tank Museum, but I really don't want to go to the Tank Museum. It's not that I've got anything against the tanks, and what's making them interesting is the fact that my son knows a great deal about them. I mean, he could work there as a tour guide. He knows everything about everything. But I don't fancy all the walking. And my husband said, well, you can hire a mobility scooter from some place. I don't fancy that either, because I know it's stupid, but I feel like people will look at me and think she's only on that mobility scooter because she's too fat to walk. And I know that's stupid. Don't all jump in the comments telling me. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody cares. Because I know that. But nonetheless, that's how I feel about it. So if they go to the Tank Museum and I don't, I might record that day. Probably to tell you, I've done nothing knitting wise all week. I've burnt everything I've had to try and pull down, and I'm giving up knitting, and that's the end of that. So I won't see you next week, probably, but I will be back the following week, hopefully with less disaster and more positive things to show you. But don't hold your breath. I'd better go now and ring him back and get mildly told off for forgetting to tell him that I was recording. Again. Not really, he's very good. So I will see you in a fortnight. Take care. try not to have so many knitting disasters as I had. And yeah, see you later, guys.